Justin, you have a different view.
Well, I think we all probably have views that overlap and views which do differ on these things. I totally agree with Johnny that history never runs an even course, and for that reason, well, yes, it is sometimes very difficult to predict the future. I have to say, in the case of Burma, that it does look horribly bleak for many of the reasons which my colleagues here have just presented. The election, I think, is a foregone conclusion in as far as one can predict anything at all. Both in the election laws, and I got two of them here, supplied to the two chambers of the upcoming assembly, are draconian. In any number of ways, the NLD and Aung San Suu Kyi have been squeezed out, contained as they've been contained both politically and physically, usually, over the last 20 years. So it is very bleak. I should say, before I say anything else, first of all, that I am absolutely anti-regime, and I say that because I'm not that I am anti-sanctions as well. And sometimes when one says sanctions have been a waste of time, which I firmly believe, or that sanctions should be lifted, etc., people immediately think it should be a regime style not, and there is something totalitarian in itself of accusing the person who takes a different view of being a regimist. And the second thing I'd like to say, a slight thing I note, is that I'm a historian. In fact, I was trained at this Howard University in the pre-post-colonial history days. So I've been trying to catch up ever since. But we were taught to look at text very carefully. We were also taught at Oxford, or I was taught at Oxford, to look at where we could at the bigger picture. And my interest in Burma was originally as part of Southeast Asia and continues to this day to be part of Southeast Asia. Let me say about sanctions that one of the reasons that the outlook is so bleak, and I don't see much change happening very quickly, is because the West has isolated Burma through a program of sanctions, through a program of cold culture, in a period of globalization. If you look at other nations, I'll take two, I'll take Vietnam and Thailand. If you look at other countries in South Asia, both of which have had problematic history, take Thailand first. Now, people forget that at the beginning of the 1950s, whilst Burma still had a more or less democratic government, Thailand was very much under the cosh of the military. However, partly because of the Vietnam War and the Americans coming in, and American enterprise coming in, even things like Thailand has opened up fantastically since then. There are still problems. The military still intervenes, and we've got a huge clash between yellow shirts and red shirts going on there, between Thaksin's poor uprising of poor people, aided and abetted by some of the senior businessmen in the country, and then the yellow shirts, who basically represent a royalist establishment. Those this clash has been coming for a very long time. But nonetheless, that said, Thailand compared to sort of Burma, 50 years on from the days when people who could afford to actually went from Bangkok to Rangoon to shop. It's now totally the other way around. People go from Rangoon, if they can afford it, they're out, and they've got these passports. They go to sort of Bangkok and Singapore, things like that. And the reason for that is because there's been a policy of engagement of economic engagement between Thailand and the outside world. So I think in that comparison, Thailand wins hands down. It's not surprising because certainly during the Vietnam War period, Thailand was very much an adopted child of the United States. Well, I moved to Vietnam. Vietnam has a history which is as bloody as Burma's, and possibly in recent times bloodier. And it went through appalling times, which we all know about. Since the late 1980s, they created a program called Doi Moi, which means restructuring. They have not gone for political reform, but they've gone for economic reform. They created a stock market in 1997. They've gone in for a lot of joint ventures with Western companies, particularly, but also Japanese, Korean companies. And that is transforming Vietnam. They still have political prisoners, but far fewer political prisoners than Burma. they control the press very, very closely, but increasingly you get demonstrations happening and being allowed in Vietnam. The army has learned not to react violently to these things. Just as, by the way, in Thailand, you get tens of thousands of people on the streets that 20 or 30 years ago, the army would have opened fire on them. These huge protests in Thailand are entirely peaceful, apart from the occasional act of violence like a grenade, which is usually done by some of the protesters anyway, which is totally different from what's happening in Burma. So I look at those two countries which have and are undergoing a process of economic engagement with outside countries where there are no sanctions opposed them. And I do see good things have happened and are happening. And that is one of the reasons why I challenge this whole program of sanctions, of isolating Burma at a time when the whole drift of globalization is towards integration of countries. You must not be Jean Seaton. Now, so, I mean, it is remarkable that you ask yourself, what does Thailand have? What does Vietnam have? Malaysia have? Singapore have? Indonesia have? Philippines have? Which Rangoon does not have. Burma does not have. Myanmar does not have a stock market. Now, amongst Burma activists, there is an overlap with anti-capitalists, and I recognise that. I actually support many of the ideals of anti-capitalists. Nonetheless, I see a stock market, and this will come as a surprise to some people, in fact, as an instrument of democracy. First of all, it puts the economy, the actual economic performance of the country on the spotlight. It opens up a way for many more people to participate in the national economy, though of course we don't all get to a share of owning the democracy as such. That should tend to choose. It means that, particularly if there's going to be any international investment, that you have to have a rule of law there so that people know that they can safely invest in something. Everything that we have done in the West since 1990 has prevented that kind of development, which has happened in surrounding countries, and that is because of our punitive attitude towards them. And why should the generals really take any notice of us? At the moment, there is a move to create a commission inquiry at the UN to go into the fact of the horrific crimes against humanity in Burma. It'll get nowhere. It probably won't go ahead because it'll be blocked by China, though China's not part of the ICC. But all along, I feel that the West, the outside world, and it's not the international community. Gordon Brown last week read to Ban Ki-moon saying the entire international community deplores what's going on inside Burma. That's untrue. What Gordon Brown means by the entire international community is those members of the international community who agree with Gordon Brown. So we are going nowhere in a hurry, and I think it's probably too late because it has become a kind of puppet state of China. But we shouldn't throw economic engagement out the window. And my last point is this, that the one hope I can see is that if you look at Spain, which had a fearsome military rule after the Spanish Civil War for so long, and then there was that pattern where the technocrats took over and finally Franco died, and Spain became an extraordinarily vibrant and important democracy within Europe. Now, if you say the word technocrat at the moment, people frown, but that may be an organic process that may happen. We should perhaps look, in view of the fact that we are not going to invade Burma and destroy the regime that way, we're not going to do regime change that way, that we should look at that kind of pattern. If these upcoming elections mean that there are more civilians in government, high position in government, that may not altogether be a bad thing.
Thank you very much indeed.